The Silence of the Barn. A true scary farm horror story. Nestled in the rural heart of the Midwest, just outside a small town called Fairview, stood an old, sprawling farm known to locals as the McAllister Homestead. For generations, it had been a thriving epicenter of agriculture, with fields stretching as far as the eye could see and a barn that had seen decades of hard work and prosperity. But as the years passed and modern life encroached, the farm fell into a state of disrepair, its stories and secrets buried under layers of neglect and forgetfulness. It was here that I, Jessica Redding, experienced a series of events that have haunted me ever since. In the summer of 2005, I was a young college student looking for a way to make some extra money. The McAllister farm, now owned by an aging couple, Sarah and Henry Caldwell, seemed like the perfect opportunity. The Caldwells were kind and welcoming, happy to have an extra pair of hands to help with the summer harvest and various chores around the property. I moved into the small, cozy guest house on the edge of the farm, excited for a season of hard work and fresh air. The first few weeks were uneventful. My days were filled with the rhythm of farm life, waking up at dawn, tending to the animals, working in the fields, and sharing hearty meals with the Caldwells. Despite the back-breaking labor, I found a sense of peace and satisfaction in the routine. The Caldwells, though in their late 70s, were still remarkably active and knowledgeable about the farm. Henry was a tall, wiry man with a gentle demeanor, while Sarah was a stout woman with a no-nonsense attitude and a heart of gold. As July turned into August, the weather grew hotter and more oppressive. The air was thick with humidity, making the already strenuous work even more exhausting. It was during one of these sweltering afternoons that I first noticed something unusual about the barn. I had been sent to fetch some tools, and as I approached, I felt a sudden chill despite the blistering heat. The barn, an imposing structure of weathered wood and rusted nails, seemed to loom over me with an air of silent menace. Inside, the barn was cool and dark. The familiar smell of hay and animal feed was mixed with something else, something faintly metallic and unsettling. I shrugged it off as my imagination and quickly found the tools I needed. But as I turned to leave, I heard a sound that stopped me in my tracks. A low, guttural growl coming from the shadows at the far end of the barn. My heart pounded in my chest as I scanned the dim interior, but I saw nothing. Telling myself it was just a stray dog or some other animal, I hurried back to the sunlight and the safety of the open fields. That night, as I lay in bed, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease. The image of the dark, foreboding barn and the eerie growl played over and over in my mind. I decided to mention it to Henry the next day, hoping he could provide a logical explanation. "Probably just an old coyote or a raccoon," he said with a reassuring smile. "They sometimes wander in looking for food. Nothing to worry about." His words comforted me, but only for a while. Over the next few days, I couldn't shake the sense that something was terribly wrong. The barn seemed to take on a life of its own, its darkened corners and hidden recesses concealing secrets that I was afraid to uncover. One evening, as I finished up my chores, I saw movement out of the corner of my eye. A shadow darted across the entrance to the barn and disappeared into the darkness. Summoning my courage, I decided to investigate. I grabbed a flashlight and cautiously made my way inside. The beam of light cut through the gloom, revealing stacks of hay bales and old farming equipment. I scanned the area, my heart racing, but saw nothing out of the ordinary. Just as I was about to leave, the light caught something strange. A large dark stain on the wooden floor, partially hidden beneath a pile of hay. I knelt down and touched it, my fingers coming away sticky and red. Blood. Fresh blood. Panic surged through me as I stumbled backward, dropping the flashlight. In the sudden darkness, I heard the growl again, closer this time. I fumbled for the flashlight and, with trembling hands, managed to turn it back on. The beam illuminated a pair of glowing eyes staring at me from the shadows. I screamed and ran, not stopping until I was safely inside the farmhouse, breathless and shaking. The Caldwells found me in a state of near hysteria. Between sobs, I told them what I had seen. Their reactions were unexpected. Henry's face grew pale, and Sarah's expression turned grim. "Jessica, there's something you need to know," Sarah said, her voice unsteady. "This farm has a history, and not all of it is good." They proceeded to tell me a story that chilled me to the bone. Decades ago, before the Caldwells took over, the farm had been owned by a man named Jacob Harlow. Harlow was a recluse, known for his violent temper and cruelty towards animals. He lived alone, and rumors circulated that he practiced dark rituals in the barn. One summer, a young farmhand went missing. Despite a thorough search, no trace of him was ever found. The locals whispered that Harlow had something to do with it, but nothing was ever proven. Eventually, Harlow himself disappeared, leaving the farm abandoned until the Caldwells bought it. "We've never seen anything like this before," Henry said, his voice trembling. "But we always felt there was something off about the barn. We've avoided it as much as possible." Their story left me terrified, but I resolved to uncover the truth. The next morning, I returned to the barn, this time with Henry by my side. We searched every corner, looking for any sign of what might have caused the strange events. As we dug through piles of old hay and moved heavy equipment, we discovered a hidden trapdoor beneath a rotting wooden plank. With great effort, we pried it open, revealing a dark, narrow staircase leading down into the earth. Armed with flashlights and a sense of dread, we descended into the darkness. The air grew colder and more oppressive with each step. At the bottom, we found ourselves in a small subterranean chamber. The walls were lined with shelves holding strange, unidentifiable objects. In the center of the room was an old, rusted iron table stained with dark patches that looked disturbingly like blood. The sight made my stomach churn, but what caught our attention most was a large iron cage in the corner. Inside the cage was a mass of bones, human bones. The realization hit us like a punch to the gut. This was where Jacob Harlow had conducted his macabre rituals. The growls, the blood, the shadows. It all made sense now. The malevolent presence in the barn was a lingering remnant of Harlow's dark deeds. We contacted the local authorities immediately. The discovery led to a full investigation, and the remains were confirmed to belong to multiple individuals, including the missing farmhand from years ago. The case was reopened, and the farm became a crime scene. The Caldwells were horrified by the revelations, their peaceful retirement shattered by the gruesome history of their home. The barn was eventually torn down, the land consecrated and left to nature. The Caldwells moved away, unable to live with the memories of what had been uncovered. As for me, I finished my summer work and returned to college, but the experience stayed with me. The events at the McAllister farm were a stark reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of seemingly ordinary places. Years later, as I look back on that summer, the fear and horror are still palpable. The silence of the barn, the growls in the dark, and the terrible secrets hidden beneath the ground have left an indelible mark on my soul. The McAllister farm taught me that true horror doesn't always come from the supernatural. Sometimes, the real monsters are all too human.